what is spiritual madness? And why must we endure so much on our journey to becoming conscious? I find these to be among the richest questions to pursue because I see madness everywhere now. Not ordinary psychological madness, but deep, rich, spiritual madness. What is spiritual madness? I want to discuss that in this program. I want to take you into that and hopefully give you guidance on how managing your own madness, on how to come out the other side. In order to understand spiritual madness, you have to start from a perspective as large as you can get, which is, for what purpose were you born? This is a question we ask ourselves. We ask ourselves very casually, for what purpose was I born? Only I don't think you realize what the answer requires or what it triggers in you. In the mystical tradition, in the Christian mystic tradition and in Buddhist traditions, when you would enter a monastic lifestyle, you would prepare to ask those questions. You would fast in order to ask those questions. In the Eleusinian mystery schools, there are records of people preparing 20 years to ask those questions because they knew that once you invoked direct contact with God, everything in your life turned upside down. Now, as an overview, just to locate ourselves in terms of human evolution, I think that it's not unfair to add an almost historic perspective in that 30 years ago, two events happened that are symbolically very profound that are actually tied to this, in my opinion. One is the Dalai Lama leaving Tibet, being forced out of Tibet. And then within a few years, a meeting called Vatican II. These two events, if you place them on the global scale, represent the release of Eastern mysticism and the release of Western mysticism into the global brain. Because those two events suddenly allowed access to the interior of secret chambers, chambers that had been secret for almost 2,000 years. All of a sudden, the significance of these events was that the ordinary among us, we, the ordinary, could approach sacred texts we would never have been allowed to study before. We could read material we'd never have been allowed to touch. We could enter into dialogues with spiritual teachers in a way that we'd never have been allowed entry before. What these two events triggered was a doorway that said, come on into your own soul. And that's what we did. Now, what does that mean? We then started the consciousness movement, the movement to become conscious. You think about what that means. Do you realize that means we're admitting we were unconscious? I could get very humorous about this, but think, what do we mean when we say we want to become conscious? We want to see God in our lives. What does that mean? We go through stages of evolution, and this is where the madness comes in.
If you retire hoping to have an extrasensory experience in the form of a dream, yet doubting that this can happen, you may still dream, but it will have no meaning. Many men and women go to bed deeply concerned about their own health and economic conditions, or that of friends or loved ones, but they do nothing in and of themselves about it, and conditions as a result may worsen instead of improve.